Today we're talking about middle grade books published in the 1950s. Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel and happy middle grade March. Today we kick off the first day of middle grade March and I am super excited for all the middle grade books that we're going to be reading and sharing this month. So if you have a favorite, go ahead before I forget that you have not heard me talk about, go ahead and put that in the comments so that I can pick that one up too or add it to my ever-growing TBR. But today I thought that I would share some children's books, some middle grade books that were published in the 1950s. If you follow my channel, you know that I love vintage books, old books, classics, and I'm always on the lookout for more to add to my collection. So I thought for this channel in particular, we would talk about some vintage middle grade books. And I found that a lot of the books that I enjoy reading were around the 1950s and 60s. So I thought, well, I'll look at, just out of curiosity, what are some of the best books, middle grade books, that were published in the 1950s? And so I went through all sorts of articles on the internet and saw many that were the same, that, you know, different people had agreed that it was, in fact, one of the best books written in the 1950s. But that was subjective, of course, and this whole list is subjective. Let's be honest about it. But I also took that list to try to make it a little more of a general list that everybody could agree upon. And I went over to Goodreads to look at how many of these books had been reviewed and rated and how many had the highest rating on Goodreads. And that was about as scientific as I could get. So here we go. These are the best middle grade books published in the 1950s according to the internet and Goodreads and the things that I could find. Now I will be starting with the highest rated and work my way down. And normally we start at the end and, you know, 10, 9, 8 and we go up to the top number one most famous, best, or whatever. But for this list, I'm going to start at the best book, as Goodreads and other articles had mentioned, and work my way down because these books are super popular at the top of the list. And since you probably know those, I thought I would get those in first, and we'll talk about those first. So the first one on the list, now again, I went to all these different articles and compared lists, and then I went over to Goodreads, and this book was the highest rated out of all of these books that I'm going to share, as well as had been rated the most often. So in other words, it had a Goodreads rating of 4.23, which is the highest out of all of these. And over 2 million people had reviewed and rated this book. So it was clearly the winner out of these books for the top. And that book is, can you guess it? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Now I'm going to share all of the books. I have this beautiful set that I went through and read last year. Beautiful set of the whole Chronicles of Narnia. And so I'm going to say the Chronicles of Narnia for the first spot on this list because the others were listed as well, and they also were published in the 1950s. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by far was the highest out of all of them. But I will say all of them made the list. They just weren't as high as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to most of us. So in the second spot, we have a book that is just absolutely precious. Most of you know this one as well, and that is A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond. Now this one I checked out from the library because I didn't have a copy, and I can't believe I don't have a copy of A Bear Called Paddington. I know I did when I taught school, but now I need to go find me another copy of A Bear Called Paddington. This is one of those just precious stories that makes a great read aloud. So if you've not read A Bear Called Paddington, pick this one up. You need to read it. If you have small children around, you need to make this your next read aloud or bedtime story, because it's fantastic for that. And you can read each chapter as a little episode in the adventures of Paddington the bear. This is a wonderful one, and it was published in 1958. The Goodreads rating was 4.23. I'll just make sure I put all of this information at the bottom of the screen as I talk about these, just in case I forget. Then number 3, I don't have a copy of this one. I should have checked this out from the library too. Oh, you know what? I did check this out from the library because I read it recently, but they only had an ebook of it. All of a Kind Family was published in 1951. I'll just post a picture up here of All of a Kind Family. I just recently read this for the first time, and I absolutely loved it. It's about a Jewish family, a bunch of girls in the family, and all the adventures that happen within this loving family. It reminded me of the recently published series, The Vanderbeekers. If you've read The Vanderbeekers, it has that sort of feel to it. It's just a warm, heartwarming, loving family, and all the problems that they have in the family and how they solve those problems together. It is uplifting, encouraging, and heartwarming, and not overly dramatic, just a fun read. The All of a Kind Family. I think this might be a series as well. I need to find out about that. Let me know in the comments if it is a series, because I need to pick up more of those. I enjoyed that one a lot, and I read that just recently, I think in January. The next book on the list is my all-time favorite middle grade. You already know that if you follow my channel, and that is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. And this was published in 1952. This won the Newbery Honor, and I think it should have, of course, won the actual medal that year. The book that won the medal, most people don't even know about, because this book, well, it's just better. And you need to read the two and decide for yourself. But if you've not read Charlotte's Web, it is a delightful story, and I always tell everyone you need to read it every decade. It's just a beautiful story about friendship, and it's set on a farm. Just a wonderful story. You probably know that one. It's pretty popular. And then we have Gone Away Lake. I don't have a copy of this, but I have just checked out an ebook of this on my from my library. And Gone Away Lake was published in 1957, and so I don't know anything about this one. I've heard great things about it though, so I have a little synopsis here. It says, Gone Away Lake is a novel written by Elizabeth Enright. It was published in 1957, and it was the runner-up for the Newbery Medal. It was named the Lewis Carroll Shelf Award in 1970. It tells the story of cousins who spend a summer exploring and discover a lost lake and the two people who still live there. That sounds like a great summer read, so maybe I should save that for the summertime. But I've heard great things about that one, and I want to get to that one too. The next one on the list is one that I discovered last year. It was one of my favorite reads of the year last year, and that is The 101 Dalmatians, and it was published in 1956. This is a bind up of 101 Dalmatians and the next book, which is Starlight Barking. So that's why it looks so thick. It's really not a long book. I love this story. This book was just such a delight. It was a surprise how much I enjoyed it. Now, I am an animal lover. I do love animals, especially dogs. I have a little dog, a Maltese, Millie, and she is the queen of this castle. But this, I think anyone would love the story because it's heartwarming, and if you enjoyed the Disney cartoon, you probably would enjoy this. And it's told from the perspective of the animals, which makes it super fun. So I highly recommend 101 Dalmatians. The next one I have not read, but I've heard about this one as well because it won the Newbery, so I will be reading it because I'm trying to read all the Newbery books. This is called Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, published in 1955. So I have a synopsis here, and I'll put a picture up. The book is a children's biography of Nathaniel Bowditch, a sailor and mathematician who published the mammoth and comprehensive reference work, The American Practical Navigator. It's an epic tale of adventure and learning. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if you say Bowditch or Bowditch. Let me know in the comments if you know, but I have not read that one. I do plan on reading that one soon because it is a Newbery. So the next book is Old Yeller. I have read that, but I don't have a copy of it on my shelf, so I'll put a picture up. It was published in 1956 and it received a Newbery honor as well. It centers around this dog, Old Yeller. I think that Walt Disney made a film adaptation of that one as well. And then number 9, I don't have a copy of this one either. I have read this, but it's been a long time. My Side of the Mountain, and it was published in 1959. Synopsis says that it won an honor, a Newbery honor for that one as well. And I think that they've made a film of that. I have not seen the film of that one, but I'm pretty sure that they made a film of My Side of the Mountain too. And then I do have the next one. Number 10 is The Borrowers by Mary Norton. I love this book too. This is a favorite, and there is a series of these. The Borrowers was published in 1952, and it's about these wee little people who live in the walls of the house, and they borrow things to make their own home. And so they, will pick up little things and take it back to inside the walls where they live, and they use the people's things, the humans' things, to accommodate their own lives. I hope that makes sense. But it's super cute. When I was a kid, I loved these kind of books. There was a series called The Littles that's very similar to this. I just love the idea of wee little people living in the attic or in the walls of the house. I just found that fascinating, and that's what this is. It's a fun adventure, and there are several in this series. So those are the top 10 that I found that had high ratings. They were books that had 4.0 or higher, and then I have some others here that I just wanted to mention as well. One of the other ones is Henry Huggins. Now, this is one of my favorite books, and this one made me a reader because it's a Beverly Cleary. Henry Huggins by Beverly Cleary. This is a series as well. I love the Henry Huggins books, and they make wonderful read-alouds too. But these books made me a reader. All the Beverly Clearys did. But now a lot of people like the Ramona books. I love Ramona too. Henry Huggins is part of the Klickitat Street group of kids. But my favorite was always the Henry Huggins. I always enjoyed reading those more than Ramona. Now, I do enjoy Ramona, but Henry was just my kind of kid. And so Henry Huggins is the first one, and then there are several in this series as well. So I thought I would mention it because it did have a 4.0 rating as well. And then The Witch of Blackbird Pond was published in 1958. It had a 4.0 rating on Goodreads too. I read this, I think, last year. It won the Newbery, and that's why I read it. It was a great book, too. It's about a girl who lives in, I think, Barbados, and she ends up moving to, I think this is like the late 1600s. Yeah, the late 1600s. Kit is what they call her. She moves to America to live with her aunt and uncle in a Puritan community, and it's about how different she is and how they, in this Puritan community, how they find, they struggle with accepting her because she is different, and also about accepting other people in the area because of their differences. It's a very good book, and I enjoyed this one. And again, it won the Newbery. And then I have just a few others that were on my shelf that I just kind of wanted to mention. This one was a fun read. I read this one, I don't know, maybe last year. It's called The 13 Clocks by James Thurber. It was last year because I read some James Thurber short stories, and I heard about this one through that. But this was published in 1950. I didn't realize that. And this is a fairy tale, and it's a fun fairy tale with a lot of puns and things in it. I found it to be a fun one. It has this particular edition. Now, I don't know if all of them have these great pictures, but they have these wonderful illustrations all the way through it. And I just found it to be a fun read. If you like fairy tales and just different takes on fairy tales, this one is a humorous one, and I enjoyed that one. But that's called The 13 Clocks by James Thurber. And then this one was one I remember as a child as well. There's a series of these. It's called Henry Reed Incorporated by Keith Robertson. I had that one on my shelf, so I thought I would mention it. It's kind of like the Henry Huggins, Ramona Quimby type books. This was a favorite Newbery that I read, Miracles on Maple Hill by Virginia Sorensen. I think this is a great one to read in the winter time because there's some beautiful winter scenes in this one. It goes through the whole year, but the winter scenes to me are the coziest. I really enjoy this one. And then, oh, this is a favorite. Now, I read this with my students when I taught 3rd grade. They enjoyed this one. It was a great read aloud, too. This is called The Chocolate Touch by Patrick Skeen Catling. I love this little book. It's super quick. You could read this in a day probably. Let's see how many pages. 87 pages. So pick this one up from your library as just one to just squeeze in one day. Super cute. It's based on The Midas Touch, and it's a retelling of that called The Chocolate Touch. So you kind of know what happens by probably this picture on the front of, what is his name? Let's see. John, and that is his mother there, so you can kind of see what's going on. But I love this one. It's a fun one too. And let's see, I think I had a couple others. Oh, here's one that I just read. I'm not going to talk about it because I just read this one, so I'm going to be reviewing it soon. But it's called The Wheel on the School by Mindert de Jong, and it won a Newbery as well. And this one was published in, I don't know, I don't have it written down, I just grabbed it, 1954, and again it won a Newbery, and I'm going to talk about this one, do a review on this one soon, so hold on because I will be sharing that one in another video. But I thought I would mention it here in case you want to make a list of these 1950s books. Another one I had on my shelf, this one was published in, I didn't write these down, I'm sorry. Let's see. 1956, The Enormous Egg by Oliver Butterworth. This, again, 1956, and it won the Lewis Carroll Shelf Award. I wrote it on the back to remember. The Lewis Carroll Shelf Award. And so if you want to use this for an award winner, I know that's one of our prompts this year because it didn't win a Newbery, but it did win an award. This one is an interesting little book. Again, it's not that long. It's about a little boy on a farm who one day goes to discover under his chicken this enormous egg and what hatches from the egg. So that's that one. And then one more that I have. This is a collection of short stories, and it's called The Little Book Room by Eleanor Farjeon. I'm not sure how to say her name. And this says the winner of the Carnegie Medal and the Hans Christian Andersen Award. And it is short stories for children published in 1955. So if you want a short story collection published in the 1950s, you might want to pick this one up. So those are the best middle grade books published in the 1950s. Have you read any of these? Do you agree with this list? Are there some that I have not mentioned that you would add to this list as well? Let me know in the comments, and happy middle grade March. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.